Good evening and welcome back. My name is Jewel Whitfield, and I serve as Assistant Superintendent of Administration. Mrs. Patterson will be joining us later following our school board meeting. Last week was an exciting kickoff of our work, and I thank everyone who was able to be here for meeting one, and welcome anyone who wasn't able to be here, but has joined this evening. Tonight, we have an exciting agenda. And as we continue to move through our Portrait of a Graduate process, for those of us who are joining us for the first time, a brief reminder that this process to identify our shared aspirations for our CISD students. We will be answering the question, what are the key skills and attributes we aim to develop in Crosby ISD students? Our final product will create a unified and collective vision for our community and is designed to be a collaborative engagement opportunity. I encourage everyone who is unable to be with us the last time to watch the recorded Zoom meeting, which is housed on our Strategic Planning Committee website, so you and any of our community can easily follow along with your committee's work. Tonight, we have our superintendent and our school board meeting participating in a school board meeting, but we certainly want to acknowledge them and thank them for allowing us to complete this work. I will now turn it over to Dr. Ann McClellan, who will facilitate another great working meeting this evening. Dr. McClellan?
Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. Good evening, committee members. I would like to introduce another member of our team. You met Abby last week and Melissa Weiland. And Susie, if you'd give us a wave. Susie is our operations guru, and she's coming to us from New Jersey. I hope you were back this evening feeling inspired after our launch meeting last week and bring the same energy and voice that powered our last meeting. 54 people joined that call. Thank you. Tonight, we will spend time reflecting on how your perspectives may have shifted or stretched after listening to your students in last week's panel, or any subsequent conversations you may have had around this work from our last meeting. Weren't those students amazing? I want to give them a round of applause. They were just stunning. Maya, Jeffrey, and Christian made me proud. I know you had to be Crosby proud. You may have also visited some of the resources, and you will find those resources on your webpage, and we will continue to post committee meeting resources and recordings on that webpage. This may also have helped shape some of your thinking. We will move into breakout rooms to have a smaller, more intimate conversations that are grounded in our guiding questions. And here they are again. What are our hopes and dreams for our students? What are the key skills and traits that they need to be successful in learning and, most importantly, in life? So let's just do a recap of the thought exchange. So right now, what you see, thank you, Abby, is this is where you would find, if you go to district goals and priorities, this is where you would find, in fact, the Portrait of the Graduate recordings, and then also the PowerPoint. So let's move on to the recap of the thought exchange. Last week, you all participated in the thought exchange and offered the following. So you can see a word cloud, and I'd like to highlight a couple of key words for you. When you see this, and I'm going to just call an audible. In the chat, pull one word that you see that means a lot to you. The biggest one on the screen certainly is communication ability. I love this. Integrity, leadership. And tonight we're going to dig in a little more and look at these as we've used Thought Exchange to help guide our work. Communication, problem solving. Again, there's integrity in communication. The artificial intelligence tool that is part of the Thought Exchange took your comments and generated themes or big ideas based on what was shared by you as you participated. So much to Landon's call out of accountable, we as consultants are accountable to putting your voice up on the screen. Those are here and represent the start of your big ideas starting to take shape. So Abby, take us to the next slide and let's look at the display of tiles. This is another view. Sometimes representing data is worth seeing it in another view. And you can start to see in this linear fashion what landed from this work. And again, I'm going to call out for you and you'll see as the tool sorted these, it grouped problem solving and resourceful, curious, self-motivated, and goal-driven. This starts to now take some shape. Responsibility, ownership, and accountability. I don't know how that lands with you, Landon, but those three together really, for me, are loud and clear what that could look like. Integrity and honesty, kind, compassionate, empathetic, service-minded, academic skills. Now, Ms. Whitfield, we're going to make sure we've got those academic skills are going to be foremost. As a B-rated district and moving on up, we want to make sure that we keep that right in our line of sight. I love this one, innovative and creative. So let me take you back, and my screen has just changed its view, and I am now back. So now that you can see another view, and this is not that we chose academic skills as being first, it's alphabetical. So, but as a former principal and a former senior staffer, I would say academic skills, and also as a parent, academic skills certainly drove my work as a teacher, a principal, and senior staff. So we then heard from your students. Remember what we heard from Maya, Tristan, and Jeffrey. Accountability, responsibility, self-talk. I mean, Jeffrey just, I wanted to go to the high school the next day and thank Jeffrey. Time management, again, that was a big theme of how do I manage my time? And I have the agency to do so, was what landed with me. Remember, this process is designed to evolve over time. And as your thinking shifts and takes shape, the key themes will surface. So we have some themes, but the themes will start to tighten up. Tonight, we will push our thinking. Before we do, I'd like to invite a few committee members to share a few personal reflections about where your thinking is. And in this moment tonight, if you wouldn't mind, if I could get a couple to raise their hands that if they were interested in sharing. Now, those who don't want to share, I may need to make a call on you, but if I could get somebody to volunteer, that would be really fabulous. So I'm going to offer, and you could certainly pass, but I can see Josh Pope. Could you share some of your reflections from the previous meeting? First, did you attend? And what were your thoughts? And you'd have to come off mute. Thank you. And then Gail McKee, you're next up. So Josh, introduce yourself. What are you doing in Crosby? And then what were your reflections?
Yeah, so Josh Pogue. So I actually own the Chick-fil-A in Crosby, so business owner in the community. So
okay, do you understand that in Sonic? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
No, absolutely. I think reflection from last time, I thought it was really great, the collaborative effort. I think just everybody has a voice, which I thought was great, with from admin to teachers to principals to students to community leaders, right? So I think that was pretty cool. And then the second part I would say is just kind of the technology that we used. I really, really loved the AI piece, and kind of everybody being able to like the thoughts that were shared and how that kind of created this web. I thought that technology was pretty great. So
Thank you. And thanks for your commitment as a community member. That it means a lot. Okay, I'm going to invite you to go back on mute. And Gail McKee, you're up next. And Taisha Castillo, you're next after Gail. So Gail, introduce yourself, please, and then give us your thoughts about last week.
Okay. I'm Gail McKee. I'm one of the 5th grade teachers at Drew Elementary School. And the reflection that I have, I'm really excited about where I see we're going with this. I love the mix that we have online here. All those that are involved have some type of involvement within our community, within the school setting. Teachers, and just the collaboration I think is really great. I like that we're pooling ideas, so we're getting to hear from each other and getting to hear more about what's going on or where we're going with it. So I think it's a really good step in the right direction is what I would say.
Thank you so much. And then Takisha, you're next.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I am Takisha Castillo, and I teach at the University of Houston Clear Lake. And I partner with Crosby to support my pre-service teachers to come and do their clinical experiences in the district. And so it's a really good partnership that we've developed with our pre-service STEM teachers. And I just like the fact that last week we were able to hear from students and see what they needed to be successful, and the idea of full circle and supporting them and being successful in their future endeavors. So really excited about the work.
Thank you so much. So what a nice round group of people to contribute. We have a business owner, we have higher ed, and then we have a 5th grade teacher. Thank you so much. And that was just a random call out of who I saw in front of me. I really appreciate it. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to take you into some more dialogue and back to multiple of you folks that are participating called out communication. And through communication, we surface the voice of others. So through these breakout rooms, we want to hear from the rest of you. We will begin tonight's meeting by moving into these breakout rooms where you will have an opportunity to further debrief how the student voices or any further thinking that you may have done since that last meeting are shaping your thinking now that you see what the big ideas are as they're starting to rise up to the top. We will spend approximately 25 minutes in the breakout rooms where we will have a facilitator who will be guiding your conversations. I encourage you to take notes for yourself as you begin to develop ideas with those committee members. When you return to the whole group, you will be invited back into the thought exchange so that our individual thoughts continue to shape our collective work. We will be taping the breakout rooms, so breakout facilitators, remember to hit record. We find that the quality of the conversation is equal to the quality of the conversation in the larger group. And it was super useful in our last project. So breakout facilitators, not only do you have instructions, we're adding one to it. Please hit record once you're there. In a minute, an invitation will pop up inviting you to move into the breakout room. Please accept it, and you will be moved into a smaller virtual space where you can come off mute and converse with your group of committee members in that breakout room. When the time is up, you will automatically rejoin our whole group room. In addition, we'll send you a warning message, breakout room facilitators. So if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Hicks, I see that due to the size, we're in the same room. We are happy to tag team with you or however you wish to lead or follow.
Okay, perfect. I'm good either way. So
Wonderful.
whichever.
Okay, great. Well, I'm happy to get us started, and I've been monitoring to make sure that everyone is in the rooms they're supposed to be in. But perfect. If we have a couple additional folks, we'll make sure to loop them in. But thank you, everyone, for being here in this space tonight. My name is Abby Walker. I'm one of the team members who's helping facilitate this process. And what I'd love to do is first just start off with an opportunity to go around our squares and make sure in the next 20+ minutes that we have together, we all know each other's names and what our roles are and our connections to Crosby ISD are. And then I've got a couple questions that Mr. Hicks and I together will help kind of guide our conversation to push all of our collective thinking this evening. So Lane, if you're first, top left for me, if you'd like to go first, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Lane Sherman. I actually know Miss McKee and Mr. Hicks pretty well. I taught in the district. I'm a past educator, and I also taught in Crosby in the past. I'm also a community business leader, I guess. I'm a realtor in the area, and I'm also a parent.
Many hats.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate that. And if those of you in the room also have many hats, please feel free to share all of them. I think each of your perspectives that you bring to the conversation is really, really valuable. Ms. McKee, you are next in the row.
I'm Miss McKee. I'm a fifth grade teacher. I'm in school. I recognize Sherman's name. I was looking at her. She's so familiar to me. It's good to see you again. I am one of the fifth grade teachers, as I said, right here at Drew. So I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Mr. Hicks.
And I am Todd Hicks. I am the Executive Director of Operations for Crosby ISD. I have been in the district for 10 years, but I have been a longtime resident, 20+ years of Crosby, and I'm excited to be a part of this process.
Fantastic. Ms. Mendez, I know you're driving, so only come off of mute if you can safely, but if not, shake your head and I'll just move on. Ms. Mendez, you are on mute, but I do not want to disrupt your driving, so please feel free, keep driving and I can circle back to you. Okay, let's see, we are down one participant. Let me see. Oh no, here, I've got you. Mr. Okwana, am I getting your name correct? You are up next. Mr. Okwana, are you with us? Okay. I will get us started, and as I see, Mr. Okwana, if I see you come back on, or Ms. Mendez, when you are at a stopping point, you just let me know and feel free to jump off of mute. I'm really eager to have a great conversation with you all and appreciate the perspectives we've got in this space. So I think the first question is, Anne just showed us the 13, I think there were themes that have, at least at this point, I'll pause myself. Mr. Okwana, nice to see you. I hope I'm getting your last name correct, pronunciation wise, but would you like to introduce yourself before I get us started?
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
All right, sorry, I had to jump off. I was waiting on a call and it finally came through, so I had to take that call really quickly.
Not a problem.
But my name is Alexander Okwana with San Jacinto College, so excited to be here, excited to participate in this process, and look forward to coming up with that strategic plan for Crosby ISD.
Thank you so much. Well, what a great, again, a round room of perspectives, from educator to former educator to administrator to parent, business member, higher ed, community members. We've got just about, minus our students, although perhaps any of you were former students. We've got just about every stakeholder group in the room, which I really appreciate. So first question is, just as Anne revealed the top kind of 13 themes that have bubbled to the top so far, what surprises you? What makes you pleased? What resonated with you based on what you've seen so far? Any first impressions?
I'll kind of kick us off. I thought that it was interesting when she asked the question, you know, what is it that I guess resonates or stuck out to you? We got like a whole lot of different perspectives. Like some people were saying communication, some people were saying academic skills, some people were saying leadership. I mean, it was interesting to see what stuck out in each individual's mind that kind of surfaced to the top.
Absolutely. Any other takeaways, initial impressions?
I'll speak. But as a parent, I can say for sure, I think communication is probably on the top, because I see where my own children struggle, and, you know, knowing that they may be going for a job interview, and I could see where they would really struggle on that. As an educator, I think there's a lot more like problem solving and leadership within their, you know, academics in their classroom and their responsibilities. So being like having the different hats, I could see where we had so many different opinions. And so it's hard to put one at the very top over the other. But I like how we are, you know, putting them all together and driving them as a force for the district.
Absolutely. And I do think one of the really interesting things about kind of where we are now in the process moving forward is how you all decide to define those terms. So what communication means for one system may mean something different for Crosby, and in terms of how you define it, how you prioritize it, and ultimately what it looks like and how it presents in your students. You know, that's the beauty of you all making this your own and not just taking kind of big box words and using a universal definition. It is, what does it look like in Crosby to be a great communicator or a great problem solver?
I agree with what was said. One of the things that stuck out to me is how complex all the pieces were, and really interested in seeing how they all would become one, you know, one together. They all mesh together. So finding the balance and exactly figuring out which one we would put at the very top first. Is there even one that's at the very top, or do they all need to be on the same level, but definitely incorporated into everything that we're doing? So I'm really excited to see, as you said, what that's going to look like for us.
Absolutely. Mr. Aquana or Ms. Mendez, any thoughts on your end?
You know, for me, I was just glad to see some of my, you know, a lot of the things that I was thinking about, you know, were definitely on there. So I was just kind of glad to see, you know, for me, I was kind of rejoicing, kind of glad to see that some of my thoughts and some of the things that I held kind of high were made the cut. So that's
Well, I do appreciate that. I think some of the tools that we use are really important, because it's one thing to say, oh, everyone's voice matters, but often the loudest voice in the room, you know, is the one that really makes the poster or the project. But to know that no matter the strength of the voice is voice, and this really should represent the entirety of your community and your stakeholders, and not just you know, a loudest fraction. So I rejoice with you that you felt your voice was heard.
Absolutely, yeah. And just how much we have in common, you know, that you know, again, you know, how much, you know, we all have different perspectives and different ideas, but, you know, to me, you know, the group, you know, we had a pretty big group, and for us to kind of be able to narrow it down, that means we have a lot in common. And so that's a good place to start, and looking forward to what we develop from there.
Absolutely.
One more thing, Miss Walker. I liked how I don't know the lady's name, but last meeting broke it down from elementary to middle school to high school students. I think that's real important. As an educator, you know, it does need to be dimmed down per level of the students. And even like as a parent looking back saying, oh, those are the things I should have been concentrating on when they were in elementary school versus in middle school. And then now I have two that are going to be in high school, and kind of like, as a parent, things that I can do to focus on. So I think it will help parents being a tool also.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think for all of us, whether you're a parent or an educator or a community member and you see children, we all know that the expectation to be a great communicator for a 5-year-old is drastically different than a 13-year-old than an 18-year-old. And knowing that if there's really a collective responsibility to nurture these characteristics in our kids, our future, that it's not just the people at the end of the line, or those high schools, they better be doing a great job. It's all of us. And that we need to know we've got a milestone to hit in the early years and the middle years and the high school years. So I completely appreciate that. Ms. Mendez, I don't want to assume that you're safely parked, but I want to give you an opportunity if you'd like to come off of mute and both introduce yourself and weigh in.
Yeah, so my name's Aime Ornelas, and I'm the principal at Barrett. So I'm sorry, we had field day. We were trying to pick up everything, and I got caught in the car. So
I understand.
One of the things that I really enjoy about this process is actually having an alignment from pre-K all of the way pretty much to 16, right? That's a good vision to have. I think that it's important for us all to have a collective values of what we see and are important for our kids. So I think that the process is important. I think it gives us vision for everyone and alignment and what we're looking for and what we want to produce for our community. And also meeting those needs that our community has as we come into a 21st century, and all these jobs that we look at, there's demands, right? And we need to make sure that as a school system that we're providing our students a skill set so that they can compete, when they start going into whether is the military or whether it's college or whether it's their own business, but whatever they choose in life, that they're leaving Crosby ISD ready to tackle on that pursuit of whatever their dreams are. So I think that this is important, and I am glad that we're moving into taking that step to move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. I very much appreciate your voice. I think, the idea that a collective and a shared vision really unifies communities. It gives us something we can all rally behind. And when we've not only all created it together, but we all have a shared definition of what our vision is, then we all rise to the occasion and we all know our role. We know what we're working towards. So I love that idea of alignment and vision and collective collaboration here. Mr. Hicks, I'll give you an opportunity. Any question next on your mind or?
I think that I probably am gonna start to skip ahead when I ask this, but
Okay.
I'm curious to know if there were any surprises when we started to discuss either what the skills were that were revealed or with what we heard from the students. And I'm just curious to see if anybody had any surprises with what they heard. I have something in mind that was surprising to me with what I heard from the students. And that was that time management and accountability to oneself were two themes that seem to have been repeated through all of the kids that talked to us. And I thought that was a very almost grown up expression of what they needed support with, because I think as adults and as professionals, we have the same needs. How many times do we reflect on our own organizational strategies? How often do we have to keep ourselves accountable, or how often do we have to step back and go, I need to keep myself accountable to this because I tend to slack off on it? And I thought that that was just a very mature response that we heard from several of the students.
I'm going to agree with you, Mr. Hicks, but I also think that the two children that express that are some of the kids in our district that are high achievers. And so I kind of wish that we would have heard from, I mean, I hate to say it, some lower achieving students, because, you know, I can only kind of speak for my own children, and academically they're not low achievers, but I know that they struggle for sure with time management. So for kids that are academically struggling, just to kind of hear what they say, what some of their roadblocks were per se. So that would kind of be an interesting thought to hear, but I do agree with what you said.
I would kind of be interested to hear that too, because I would be curious to see if they would recognize that.
Mhm.
I'm sure some of our high achievers were picked to talk in the beginning, but maybe that's something, you know, throughout this process we could kind of consider.
That's a great
Right.
recommendation.
Mhm.
I think that that would give us perspective too. I know some of them, their focus was a lot of more academic need. And I would think that there's some more social needs that some of our students may have that we also need to fulfill in order for them to be successful, you know, in the system.
Absolutely noted. I think that's a really powerful reminder of, let's make sure we're looking at the total picture. Did anything the students say that, you know, some of these surprises or anything, did it shift any of your thinking either in one way or the other from the original the original guiding question that we asked, which was what are your hopes and dreams for our kids? Did you hear anything that made you shift, you know, my gosh, I'm going to double down on this, or, you know, I've got another thought, similar to question to Mr. Hicks, but in a different way, thinking about where you started and you are now. Has anything moved for you?
I can speak to that. I think that sometimes we forget that they're kids, but even though like parents and educators want that for them and want them to succeed and have time management, the kids want it just as much. And so I like that even though they may not be great at time management, they still want the accountability and they still want to be able to do it. And so a lot of times, I even as a teacher, I would just say, oh, they don't care. But really, they do care. They just need some hand holding to get them there.
And how beautiful for your community to create something that, again, has not only been shaped and informed by the student voice, but is for the students. You know, this hands back to them, and you know, into the system that guides them. But this is your commitment to your students. So for them to see very powerfully, we commit as a community. This is our promise to you, to develop these things in the experiences we provide. Any other thoughts where you've shifted or moved from your original thinking?
You know, I was hoping to, I think one of the things that for me, I was hoping to hear more about what's meaningful to them outside of academics. So family, community, that kind of, you know, those kind of things. I was hoping, I want to hear more about what's important to them outside of academics, you know, and you know, what are other things that drive them in terms, you know, and where I'm kind of going with that is just that civic responsibility piece of it. And that commitment to the community, that commitment to their families, that kind of thing. So I'm wanting to hear a little bit more about what's important to them outside of, academics. Of course, we want them to definitely be strong and learn and grow in that sense. But what are those driving forces outside of that they're really passionate about or want to engage more in, that kind of thing?
I have a
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that it was really wonderful for these students to talk to a big committee of professionals. But at the same time, sometimes I feel that it can be intimidating to them, and maybe their responses I think that they're honest, but maybe they don't give us the full picture because they're trying to give us the right answer instead of being completely authentic in their responses. So my question is it part of this process where we may have like groups of students where they're interviewed with just one person, and then they can really share their thoughts as a group, and we can hear some of those, those themes, instead of putting them in front of a committee of 20 people that are professional in their eyes, and they may be, more reluctant to they're more, I think, more pushed to give what answer are they looking for instead of being authentic. So that's just my thought on that. Yeah, I don't know if that's a possibility or not, just to hear their voice.
Miss Mendez, I was thinking the same thing, and also where you can interview like an elementary student and a middle school student and a high school student, because we know the high school students can do it, but an elementary student would have probably froze. But I like the idea of an interview.
Absolutely. I think, again, I'm taking ferocious notes down here off screen. I think that's a great recommendation. Okay, we have about a minute 30 remaining. Mr. Hicks, any question you want to pose to the group?
I'm gonna kind of put Ame on the spot, but I know Ame's story, and maybe at some point we'll get to hear it because it's a really good one. But I just am curious from you, what would you say what is it that kids need support in?
Is that question for me?
Yes, for you. What would you say that kids need support in to be successful?
I think for one is teachers that truly believe in their potential. I think that's, and I do believe that at Crosby we have that, because it all starts with that sentiment. If I know my teacher believes in me, then I'm going to strive for more. We can't control what our life is about. We can't control what obstacles we have in life, but we can certainly, if someone believes in us, I know that that's something that we can overcome. Is that belief of, if I can believe it, I can achieve it, kind of thing. And that's number one. And then the second thing, once that is there, if that's our foundation as a value, then the next thing is making sure that we have the systems in place to help our kids get to that point of, how do I get to the next level? Do we have the social aspect is really important, because all kids are different, and we need to make sure that we are educating the whole child, not just in academics, but also socially, making sure that they are able to be problem solvers, but just making sure that as a district, we have those systems in place to support the kids in whatever needs they may have. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No,
but
that was great.
Beautiful.
That was spot on. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I know we're about to be popped out of our rooms. I want to thank you all so much for your voices. This was really powerful this evening.
Hi, Christy. Hi, Amber. Josh is coming. Let's give it a few minutes to get everybody in. And as Anne said, I'm just kind of the facilitator. You guys are really going to be dialoguing in this space for the next 20 or so minutes. My name is Melissa Wyland, and I actually am super excited to help you guys go through this process. I've gone through it before, and it really is. I think the fun part is what's going to happen in this room tonight. So I think the first thing, if everybody can kind of come off mute and just do a very brief introduction of your name and how you're connected to the school district. And we can start with Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Covan. I'm the Executive Director of HR for Crosby.
Hi, I'm Amber Daniels. I'm a middle school RLA strategies teacher for Crosby Middle.
And Josh, if you want to go, I know we just kind of heard from you, but if you just want to introduce yourself again, that's great.
Yeah, just connected to Crosby because I own a business in Crosby, so Crosby Chick-fil-A. Happy to be here.
And Samantha?
Hi, I'm Samantha Ivy. I'm a middle school science teacher here for Crosby ISD.
And we have Marissa.
Dr. Marissa Moreno. I am the Executive Director of School and College Partnerships for Lee College. And we work collaboratively with Crosby because we have a shared college coordinator that works on matriculation in the high school, as well as, post-secondary matriculation, but works in the high school, as well as dual credit. We offer dual credit.
Great. I think we've got one more member.
Okay. Are you waiting on me?
Yes.
I have come in late. I'm Margaret Chastain. I'm president of Newport Mud. And I just finished our meeting, so that's why I'm running a little bit late.
Well, that's great. Welcome, and let's go ahead and we'll get started. I'll apologize too if you heard dogs barking in the background because they're acting a little rowdy tonight. So Anne just showed us some of the top big themes that had bubbled up from the last meeting and that have started to surface from the conversation we already started. What really resonated with you? What surprised you and why? And maybe we could start with Christy because you happen to be the first one up on my screen. So, and everybody, as we're going, you can feel free to jump in if you have comments or feedback.
Well, what I guess what resonated with me was I was very proud of our students, or we're talking about the themes. Okay. So I like that how we kind of, the words that had a lot of votes or a lot of stars or whatever were larger than some of the others. And I liked that most of the concepts that bubbled up to the top, I guess, are ones that I think we all kind of hold near and dear, like communication and integrity and things like that, that we know that to be good citizens, our kids need to possess. And what surprised me, you know, I'm not really gonna say I had many surprises. So I think it's common when you get a group of people that those true core values come up, and I kind of felt that it was reflected there.
Amber, did you have anything you want to share?
Well, honestly, I missed the first meeting because of miscommunication. I'm just getting home today, so I'm just tuning in, but Miss Patterson did fill us in from an earlier meeting what this would be about. So I'm just kind of getting bits and pieces and trying to get caught up. I did see some of the footage from the video from last week, but I'm just still trying to get caught up to see what exactly this is about because I missed that first meeting. So
that's great. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of shared a little bit already, but I thought overall the themes were just, I was really proud of the students. I mean, I thought they did a great job sharing, and I thought it was cool to hear their confidence, the kind of their dedication and how they think about the world and their future. And then I think from the themes I saw, to me, it was interesting communication. I think like as a teacher and admin who interacts with students on a daily basis, I think that's probably a really important thing to me. I definitely appreciate like more of the leadership and more of like that self-leadership piece. I thought that was a really great theme because I think that's really great, kind of no matter how old you are. And so, yeah, I mean, I thought overall it was really, really good. So,
and was there anything that surprised you or that you were like, Oh, I can't believe that's coming up.
I mean, I think, like I said earlier, this is students is proud of them, but it also surprised me just how much they were thinking about their future, planning. I mean, I definitely know that at 17, I wasn't thinking that way. And so just to hear that really surprised me, and just they're really, really disciplined in their approach to their life. So that was cool. A great surprise.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too, because they did seem very grounded. I've sat in a lot of meetings with especially high school kids, and they were extremely grounded. So you guys are doing something right in that community. It was really impressive. Samantha?
Yes, ma'am. From the word cloud last week, my biggest takeaways were integrity, problem solving, and communication. And I love the fact that the student panel talked a lot about their challenges being keeping themselves accountable and time management. So they've got that problem solving, and I like that. That was great.
And was there anything that surprised you about what was shared last week, or what was starting to emerge?
Not really. I mean, as far as the adults and us coming together and the common themes from the word cloud and everything that we talked about, that wasn't a surprise because we're all stakeholders. It's just what I expected.
Okay, great. Marissa?
Unfortunately, I was in DC last week, so I missed the meeting. Actually, I was in flight. I would have joined if I was not in flight. But I had a chance to review it, the actual video. So thank you for posting that, the Zoom. And I was very impressed by the amount of different types of stakeholders that were in the meeting. That I didn't realize that there were so many people involved in this committee. I don't think that I've ever seen a strategic plan this big, and the variety of stakeholders, as well as the students and their ability to articulate themselves to everyone that needs to hear it, right? And so going back to what Josh said, communication and leadership are definitely two things that stood out, because in order for us to be able to understand how we can better serve students, it's to communicate with them. And so I really found that very helpful in terms of really looking at, during these times together, how are we really keeping that in mind? So that's what I enjoyed from what I saw. Unfortunately, I wasn't a part of the breakouts or anything like that, but from what I saw.
Well, and this is the first real breakout opportunity we've had.
Okay.
You didn't miss anything.
Okay.
The first one.
Okay.
So it's good that's why we record it, so folks can kind of go do, if they miss it, they can go get filled in.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The students that were a part of this, were they all high school, or was it just high school, or were any kids in any other grade levels interviewed?
It was high school students. And I know when we've done this before, we usually have high school students. But if you guys feel like we would want to, because there are opportunities to bring more students in, we can talk about if we want to have some middle school kids or do some focus work with elementary, if you guys feel like that would be beneficial, because we do want to hear from students. So that was something we could connect in. Yeah, it was high school kids.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you again to come off mute, Ms. McShaston.
Okay, it's Chastain, and
Chastain.
my name's Margaret.
Margaret, okay.
I guess the thing that surprised me the most was the kids, and how I thought, wow, I'm so glad that I live in Crosby with kids that are like this. My husband teaches high school in Houston, and he teaches at the high school for law enforcement. And the things that he tells me about his students are like night and day from the students that we watched last week. So I was really surprised at how mature all of those students were.
Okay, great. And the next question was really diving into a little bit more about the students, but you guys really already spoke to that. I think it was very clear that the students made a big impression on everybody in our last meeting. So let me just throw this out to spend a couple minutes on this. How do you think having a profile of a graduate is going to help those students, help yourself as a business leader, help yourself as an educator? Like, what do you think the power of that's going to be?
I
And you
think
guys
it's motiv-
jump in.
I think it's motivation for an educator, especially middle school. We see some things that other teachers in other schools may not experience because of the age levels that the ages that we're dealing with. So to see how they evolve and mature by the time they get to be older, I did hear one of the students speak in the meeting last week, and it kind of brought a little bit of peace to me because it reminded me of how much they grow up in the next coming year. So it's motivation for us encouragement for us to keep kind of doing what we're doing. I think it's important for us to see it.
That's great.
As a middle school teacher, I'm going to piggyback right on what Amber said, because we do need that motivation. We do see a lot of the behaviors, and we know as educators where we want these students to be, but sometimes we need some reminders. Okay, this is what we need to foster specifically to get to where they're going to be, because we've got lumps of clay that we're still shaping. So we need an end goal sometimes that's more specific than just, I want them to be a productive citizen.
Right.
I mean, I think when you start with the end in mind, you can kind of reverse engineer it and say, what steps do you need to take at each level, at the middle school level, at the high school level, even at the elementary school level. So I think having that kind of profile, like you said, gives us a goal, right? Gives us a goal and kind of knows what steps we need to hit each level. And so you can know if you're successful at the middle school level, even if you're not there, you can know, hey, we hit these goals and that's going to equal the end result. So it's great.
Christy, did you have any thoughts?
Oh, I would just say that, it's always good to show what the expectations are, and especially when students have a role in molding those expectations and those goals per se, so that they know that communication skills and problem solving and integrity are important to us and to them, and not just a score. I mean, yes, academics, of course, is our main focus, but to know that we're working on helping them become good citizens and not just pass a test.
That's great. Any additional thoughts? So I know when in the last meeting, and probably, everybody logged in not really knowing what to expect. And maybe you mentioned the word expectations. So from your seat where you came into this process and where we're in the second meeting, we're starting to think a little bit more deeply about these traits or these things we want our students to embody. Has anything kind of shifted for you where when you initially came in and you said, well, these are the 5 things I'm going to hold dear to, and then after listening to the kids last week and thinking, did anything shift in your mind, or did you have an aha moment of any kind?
I think for me, it just makes me so aware of how we approach a child. And I know working with the YMCA, they have a program where they encourage every adult to always smile at a child and say hello and speak to them. And it reminds me of that. It reminds me of, how can I help? What can I do in my day to help that child get where they need to be? So it really does make you think.
And Marissa, especially kind of because you're thinking or connected much more to that post-secondary piece, like how, I'm sure there's expectations around that just from the seat you're in, but, what are your hopes, dreams, or thoughts about what you'd like to see on that final profile?
I mean, I guess I always look for opportunity, right? So that all students don't believe that dual credit is specifically for one type of student, that it's really open for any student. And that we're here to serve them, and we're here to offer them the things that they need in order to get where they need to go. I know we're not the only partner. I know we share it with San Jack as well. And so just having those opportunities and for them to just really be aware of them and just be a part of that process, so that when their middle school teachers see them, they see them not just as a high school student, but a student that's actually getting college credits as well, which is a big deal because they get it at a discounted rate and they're able to really get that college going culture started sooner rather than later. And there's research that shows that really helps the student in the long run to matriculate and to really, really dive into looking at careers, whether it's academic or technical. It's not every student wants to go for an academic career. And so just really looking at helping them, especially when you have the high school endorsements that are requiring you to make a decision in 8th grade of what you want to be when you grow up. How can we hone into that and help that student be better prepared to make those decisions by the time they get to the university? Because on our side of it, on the IHE side of it, whether it's the 2-year college, 4-year institution, they're not really giving them any more options. They have this huge movement of pathways where the student has to already know what they want to do. So Texas is ahead, so to speak, by having the endorsements and having them select. So just really trying to help them while they're in high school. So by the time they get to college, they're not wasting time or money. They're really getting into what they need to get into.
So I guess that brings me, especially listening to that was great, what you just shared. Like the hard part of this work is how do you take those really big ideas and narrow them down to like a word? And listening to you, I'm thinking that means a student who's very self-aware, right? So let's spend about 5 minutes. If you guys were going to think of some top 5 competencies that you would want to see make it to that final list, what would they be and why? And I'm going to just throw out, obviously from listening to Marissa just speak, I would make the argument that having a student that's very self-aware would be very important based on all the things you just said. So what are some other things that you guys would hope would be there?
I think I know that I'm on repeat or whatever, but I'm just going to really stress integrity, because I think we need to teach our children that they need to be trustworthy, and that, their actions have both positive and negative consequences. And so in the real world, it's not just you get an office pass, but your actions can alter the rest of your life. And so I think really showing our kids that integrity is important outside of school as well as in school helps prepare them to navigate for the rest of their lives.
That's great.
I'm going to go ahead and say communication. I know we've talked about it. Communication is two-way. The students need to be able to express themselves, but they also need to be able to receive and understand things that are being presented to them. So they've got to be good with communication, good communicators.
I love that you're putting the emphasis on receiving feedback and that piece of communication. I think that's great.
I would say vulnerability, because I feel like sometimes students don't feel comfortable in their skin if they're not self-aware and may not know what to ask, or may be embarrassed to ask, or have too much pride to ask. And so maybe some vulnerability would be helpful. I mean, you have some students that will just tell you exactly how they feel and when they feel it and all that, and they have no problem sharing. But at the same time, you have others that really need coaching in those areas, but we wouldn't know unless they were vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marissa, like, talk about self-awareness. Like, to me, self-awareness, the next step on that ladder is like self-leadership, right? So now, I know myself, I know what I want, but now I need to learn how to communicate it. I need to learn how to be vulnerable and share when I'm not feeling it, whatever it is. So to me, it's this self-awareness, communication, and then really the self-leadership piece of, hey, I got to be goal driven. I got to go out and get this for myself, because nobody's going to give it to them, right? They have to go out and take it. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I would think accountability is, we're really trying to push effort and working for what you get is what you earn. So just accountability, which kind of falls in line with what everybody else was saying.
And I would have to say focus to where they could stay on task and be able to complete a task, and just focus on that and not jump all around.
So what would you guys, where do you think academically prepared or something like that falls into the hierarchy here? Or how do you think that fits in with some of the things that we've been talking about?
How does the academically
Academically
what was
prepared,
that?
yeah.
Well, for me, I have an advantage as an RLA teacher is I can listen to the conversation and listen to the kids' heart and pull curriculum that would address all of these things. And I was able to do that, for example, this year with the book that I chose. It prompted a lot of discussion that made the kids think. And a lot of it, for example, boiled down to disabilities that they had convinced themselves that they were completely mentally disabled. Their learning disability made them completely disabled. So they were not going to amount to anything. This is middle school thinkers, but they had convinced themselves that they couldn't pass STAR, they could not be successful in the world because I have ADHD or I have this or I have that. So the conversations that we had or the novel that I pulled was about a kid with a learning disability, and which allowed me to be vulnerable with them to tell them about some of the disabilities that I had, and then finished top of my class. I mean, just to the kids, and just the confidence that I physically saw in that classroom. Like you had, yeah, and this person that I know has this disability. They're an engineer, and dyslexia doesn't have to be, all these things. And it was like, oh, and even in my classroom, grades went up. So that taught me that I can pull curriculum as a reading teacher that would focus directly on opening up those conversations, but still making it teak-based so that they're still getting what they need that is age appropriate for that class and that subject.
Thank you, Amber. So we've got about 2 minutes. So did anyone else have any thoughts on if academically prepared was thrown in the bucket of making the list of top 10?
Yeah, I definitely think it's almost like it's at the top, and it's almost a assumption that is at the top, and so we're putting all of those other things that need to support that. I don't think that it's necessarily overlooked. I think that we just generalize that that's our first goal, or in my opinion, that's how I feel about it.
I agree with that, and I also think that a lot of us are educators, and looking at it, if the students possess self-leadership and they are accountable for their actions and they have integrity and they're self-aware, then our job as educators becomes that much easier, and academics just happen because we're doing, we're teaching. And if they possess all of these other things that we've talked about, then the academics are going to be there. If they are self-motivated, if they have, that accountability, then we can teach them.
That's great.
Patrick Lencioni wrote a great book called The Ideal Team Player. And when you think about like that, kind of layering this on the top of this profile of student, the 3 elements are hungry, humble, and smart. And it's not smart intellectually, but kind of that emotional intelligence piece. And so I think like we're talking about like these character traits of humility. We're talking about these character traits of that smart piece. And then to me, like if you have those 2, hunger, it's like they're going to want to learn, they're going to want to grow. And so academics, like Samantha said, just like it just flourishes because the environment is right. So
that's great. Got like 10 seconds left if anybody wants to add anything before they suck us back into the other room. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing. Thank you very much for participating. So we're gonna go back.
Hi, welcome back. We have 19 coming back, 20. Here we go. I think we've got everybody back. I hope you had a conversation that stretched and activated your thinking. And so I'm going to invite the breakout room facilitators to share a couple of sentences summarizing their conversations. And I'll take the liberty of going first. In representing my group, we would like to invite some graduates to do a quick Zoom that we could then push to our design guru, Melissa, to do a small snippet, maybe 5-minute video capturing the voice of graduates apparently there's a band called the 22s that we want to make sure we get their voices. And so I have the commitment of one of the principals on ours, Ms. Tisdom, that she'll reach out to Jewel to say, here are the kids. And then we also had a couple of folks. Well, I guess Ms. Tisdom also has a student who just spent a first year at college. So if we could get some of those, we've done it before. We just do a quick Zoom, we record it, and then we hand it off to our guru to kind of weave it together for us. And we'll bring it to the next meeting because I think it was a great idea. We had problem solving, integrity, flexible thinking, almost bridging to curious, honesty, empathy, and perseverance. So I'm going to hand it off to the next breakout room facilitator, Abby.
Yes, thank you, Anne. Oh my gosh, where to begin? We had such a beautiful and powerful conversation in our room. So thank you to my participants and my co-facilitator, Mr. Hicks. I think there was a shared sentiment about the power of the variety of perspectives that we've seen represented here. There was some rejoicing that voice is, people feel their voice is being heard and being captured, which I really appreciate. We really celebrated the idea that even with these 13 that we're seeing right now, that we see alignment and a collective vision starting to form that is, encompasses the values of the stakeholders on this group. We did have a really interesting discussion around the hunger to hear more from students and from more students. We talked about not only listening to the students who are probably, maybe academically very prepared, but thinking about the kids who maybe have struggled in the system. What are their needs? Where do they wish they had greater supports? On that line, we also talked about perhaps considering a different format where, it takes a lot of courage for a student to come off of mute in a format like this in a room full of adults and professionals and speak their truth. And so is there an authentic way we can capture voices of elementary and middle and secondary, and high school students through focus groups or interviews and bring those perspectives back into the conversation?
Thank you, Abby. Susie, did you do a breakout room?
I didn't. Melissa's the next one, I think.
Super. All right, Melissa.
So I think where we started, they were really blown away by the diversity of the folks that are engaged in this process. And they spoke about that initially, which was really exciting. To mirror what Abby is saying, there was a question of, did we just have high school students? Were we going to have more students? So I think there was a very keen interest on hearing more from different grade levels, elementary, middle, and high. I think they were very impressed by what they heard the students share last week. I don't think it really shifted anybody's thinking, but I think it brought home for them some of the character traits and confirmed for them, yes, though what I was thinking was where we need to go is indeed where we need to go. Things like integrity, self-awareness, communication, communicator. And I think the interesting thing was we did have some discussion about communication from not just being able to communicate, but receiving feedback. So that was really something interesting that came up in our group. And then we had discussion about how if all these character traits and these things were happening, that then students would be equipped to be academically successful. So the academics piece came up there, and it was kind of where we ended our conversation. So it was great. And I thank everybody that was in that room for participating.
Thank you. Okay, last, Ms. Whitfield, and you may have had co-presenters. I appreciate you never know how many are coming on, and we have 26 now. We started with 18 and we're at 26. And again, last week we had 54. So Ms. Whitfield, will you give us a summary from your room? Oh, Miss Whitfield, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry. Yes, we were excited about our group. We had a principal join us. We also had a student in our breakout session. So that really brought another perspective to us that we were able to tap into and hear a perspective from him as well. We had a substitute teacher, community member to join us. And so it really made our group kind of eclectic. And we had one of our dual credit representatives from Lee College on board. We talked about all of the different areas or words or areas that we wanted our students to be successful in. And the main thing we talked about was this self-advocacy area and soft skills that we wanted our students to have. And it kind of permeated all areas. Once we talked about how our students had this voice and how we wanted them to be able to handle anything that would come their way, whether it was academic, social, or just advocating for themselves, we kind of narrowed things down and each person had their top 5 and we came together. We noted that the top 5, we all at least had 3 areas that were typically the same. And so from that, we had communication skills, problem solving was one that rose to the top, and as well as integrity. To move even further, we wanted to take it a step further with resiliency, respectability, and accountability. So not only holding our children responsible, but having them accountable to something. We talked too about looking at students, not only on our call before, but we had students who were maybe in the top of their class. We had students who were in dual credit on before, and then we had a student who was just happy to be working on where they were. And so we talked about how success and this portrait of a graduate should encompass and encapsulate all of the students who are in Crosby ISD's high school, so that this portrait of a graduate can work for the student who may be working on an industry-based certification. They may be planning on going to a 4-year institution, or maybe just working on an associate's degree. And this way we can make sure that all of our students are successful, no matter what their endeavor would be.
Thank you so much. Again, for all of our folks who agreed to be facilitators, breakout room facilitators, we appreciate you giving us your time. And I would like to now invite you, we're going to go back to Thought Exchange, and I invite you to get your devices ready. Some of you will be joining it using your phone, others on your computer, and we're going to re-enter the Thought Exchange for a few minutes. And Abby, I'm going to hand it off to you. Please guide us through the exchange.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So I want to just remind everyone, as I'm going to get our code ready here, that if you were not with us last time and you are new to Thought Exchange, this is a great tool that we're going to use to have a digital conversation that usually has 3 steps. So we're going to ask you a question and you usually share, and then you respond to each other's thoughts. And then I'm going to show you what we discover and take away from this. However, this one tonight is a little bit different because we have pre-populated this exchange with the 13 big themes that Anne showed us earlier in the meeting that have, at this point in the process, have bubbled to the top. So I invite you to skip the sharing phase, that first stage, if you have nothing further to add. But if something came up in your breakout room and you think, there's a word missing, there's something that I want to make sure that we don't forget to add to the conversation, absolutely add it in, and then move yourself to the share and the star phase. So without further ado, I've just put the link in the chat. I'm going to share here. Can everyone see the entry point into the exchange? A thumbs up if you can see it. Okay, great. I'm going to put 3 minutes on. Again, we may not need this much time because again, if you have nothing further to add and you think the words that we've got are great ones to work with, feel free to skip that sharing and just rank the 13 that are in there and using your stars. I'm going to go forward in a minute and we'll see, as a reminder that you've got a couple introductory slides that you'll fast forward through how this works. A reminder that we'll keep your information private, and then it'll take you into the conversation.
And you have a choice, Abby. You
Yeah.
either can submit your thought, or if you want to skip that, you can click rate thoughts.
Yes. Thank you. And so if you're going to skip it, if you have nothing else to add, skip right to the rate your thoughts. If there's a word you want to throw into the mix or a term that you think we have not yet seen surface, feel free to add that in if you'd like. I see a couple thoughts being added. And as you're moving into the ratings, this is where you're seeing the 13 plus a few that have been added this evening after your conversations of characteristics or skills or attributes that have bubbled to the top thus far. And you're essentially ranking them or rating them, how much they resonate with you. Try not to give all 5 stars to all thoughts. If you're forcing yourself to respond, knowing that we're going to need to tighten this down, see where you land. Got about a minute to go. Fantastic. You all are really making great moves here. I see a lot of responses still coming in. Last 30 seconds. Make sure that you've seen there's 23 thoughts out there. So make sure you've seen them and used your stars to rank them. About 15 seconds left. All right, 2 seconds, 1, and we'll stop it here. Okay, thank you for your voice and your participation. I will leave it open for a minute for anyone who is still putting in their last thoughts. As you can see here, we'll take a quick peek before I turn it back to you, Anne. What came out the loudest tonight? Again, you see the words that we started with tonight, what's really jumping out and really resonating with all of you. Perseverance, accountability, integrity, communication. I think this really mirrors what we heard coming out of the breakout rooms. And if we look at just the top 3, communication, integrity and honesty, perseverance. And there I see right under it, problem solving and resourceful. I know that was a big topic of discussion tonight. So our promise to you, we will take this information tonight and apply it against what we saw last time. So we're starting to narrow down that set of 13. Thank you. Thank you for your voice. Anne, I'll turn it back to you.
So there's great power in this process. As you can see, your voice is represented from just the breakout rooms. Honestly, perseverance showed up in ours, and I'm sure it showed up in others. And there's probably nothing I would want more for my own child than to be able to persevere through life challenges and as a leader, and more importantly, as one of my children. So the power of your voice is represented from this community, the Crosby communities, is that your thinking should evolve, and it has. And as you can see tonight, a clear visual is just showing up for us on that. So where are we in the process? So this is the second of 5 meetings. And in our next meeting, we will hear from a panel of business, military, and higher education representatives, what they're looking for as they receive the children you pass on to them through your schools. So you can see meeting 1, we've completed. Today we've listened. We are going to capture the voices of children, and we're going to do that in a different way. Maybe not as big as this kind of meeting, but maybe small Zooms and a couple of interviews that will work with your communications and your lead, and then possibly your tech lead, who is in my breakout room, and Miss Whitfield, to capture that. And again, I invite you to share if your thinking has shifted or been shaped, and then we'll begin to prioritize those big ideas. Remember, your board is committed to having 5 ideas in total. And some of those may be grouped in a couple of words, but again, we're wanting 5 that we could ask a 5-year-old to a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old to remember, and that every principal, every parent, every business owner would know these are the 5 big characteristics that you would see in any Crosby ISD student and graduate. At the end of the next meeting, we will start to have a much more narrow focus of what is at the top, and begin to see how some of the sub ideas have generated our conversations begin to get nestled up underneath each of those big themes. As we did last time, my exit ticket is a request for you to say one word that's on your mind right now that best describes how you are feeling about our process, and share that in the chat. So if you'll take a minute and share, how are you feeling about the process? I'd appreciate it. So I'm going to look to my chat. Encouraged, collaborative. Inclusive, optimistic, helpful, proactive, inclusive again, energized. Thank you, Mary, since I just tagged you to help us. Okay, so we'll let that roll. Heard, I love this. Minor, thank you so much, because the goal of this is to surface the voices of many. For the student who joined tonight, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Ms. Whitfield, we're going to push really hard to get more students on for the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for your participation. I look forward to seeing you all again in a few short weeks. And let's see, has Ms. Patterson come out of the board meeting? If not, yay! Welcome back. Well, while you were doing the work of the superintendent with the board, you would be very proud, Mrs. Patterson, of the students, the parents, the business owners, higher ed, your teachers, your principals, and staff from central office. I may have drafted a couple to help us on some projects, made good friends with 2 of your elementary principals, and then your ed tech person. So Mary is been drafted. Thank you. So I'll hand it off to you.
Well, I came in at the end, but what I would like to say is thank you to everyone who came on. Dr. McClellan, you got to see this is Crosby. This is what we do, and we are some fantastic people who come together. Our theme this year is Better Together. We're some fantastic people, all different stakeholders who come together to make sure our kids have what they need. So thank you guys for being awesome and amazing, and I truly am blessed to be part of this group.
So our next meeting is on June 12th from 6 to 7:30. Again, if there's a student, invite another student to join. Ms. Whitfield, we're going to push to those students who were originally on. We will do some work ourselves to try to get some other voices, maybe in a quick 5-minute video that we can include in one of our meetings. We'll have an exciting panel of some of the partners and share these perspectives, which will ultimately kind of help us check and shape ours. I'm excited about it, and I know that Ms. Patterson, this is your vision, and we're all about delivering it on behalf of Crosby. So thank you again for your engagement and for your participation tonight. Have a great night. And we ended 8 minutes early, so you all have 8 minutes back for your lives. And our core team, we're going to stay on, but the rest of you, we thank you for your participation, and have a good night.